Hi everyone, welcome to Speakers TV. I'll be interviewing two amazing people today. First up, we have Casper, who is going to be, who's one of the actors in the Peaceophobia performance, and will be talking to us about his experiences. Secondly, we have Malia, who's joining us by Zoom, who is the previous president of the National Union of Students of over 7 million students in the UK. She's also the editor of Red Pepper magazine and a community activist, and does loads of work on Islamophobia. So I'm really, really excited to speak to both of them today. Hi, Casper. Thank you so much for being here today. I wanted to ask you what got you involved in this role, and what made you go for it?
Hi. The journey of this actual show started a couple of years ago when a friend of mine, who's actually one of the organizers and the directors of a car club called Bradford Modified Club in Bradford, when he introduced me to some of the members of Speakers Corner and of the Commonwealth, sorry, and what they kind of introduced me to was the whole thing of theatre plays and stuff. And initially, I wasn't too receptive of it. I wasn't too keen on the idea. So what they did was they invited us to one of their plays called "I Have Met the Enemy and the Enemy Is in Us." And I didn't know what I was walking into, but when I did go into it, I initially didn't understand what was going on till probably about 5 or 10 minutes in. And it was a whole theatre play based on three individuals of total different and opposite backgrounds, how they found a common theme between them, and how they came together. And it was, so one of them was an ex-military soldier. One of them was a person who was on the receiving side of the oppression, and there was somebody else who was again in on Zoom, but that was still living there in Palestine. And for me, that struck a number of things, and in terms of Islamophobia and how these kind of theatre plays really are powerful in its own way. And so that's what kind of pushed me to kind of take a look at to what they were actually inviting me to do. Initially, I was still, like I said, I wasn't fully for it till they'd kind of showed me the whole agenda of exactly what's going to be going on, what's going to be said, what kind of role they want me to play. Is it going to be something I'm gonna have to act out, or is it something that's going to be based on real life experiences that I've actually faced? And yeah, going forward after that, I think it was, yeah, we kind of just ticked a lot of the boxes and got on with things.
So the way you've described it is almost like you were very involved from the beginning, like almost like co-producing it, looking at the dialogue, looking at the experiences, because a lot of what is in the play is actually, are experiences that you've had in your life as well, aren't they? Yeah. Tell us a little bit about some of those experiences.
Compared to the other two actors, I think my role in the play is very different. The other two actors are in the play. We do share a lot of common ground. But the role that I've got is based upon my personal experiences, which hasn't been much so car related. A lot of it has been down to, for example, your stop and searches, down to me getting interrogated, me being asked to come and become an informant on behalf of the government. And for me, they've been real life experiences over the years. But I think holding that particular position and role plays a very powerful and vital character inside this play, because it shows things from a whole different angle, and an angle that I don't think a lot of people are used to seeing in the public. But I do believe, and I strongly believe, a lot of people have been a victim of the kind of things that I've been a victim of. It's just nobody's really come out and spoken about it, and possibly are even scared because they don't want to. They don't know what the repercussions might be.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it was interesting when you said, the three of you are have certain things in common, and those three things, I guess, that you're from Muslim backgrounds, you're South Asian, from Bradford. And I guess I wanted to ask Malia, what where this experience just seems so universal for young Asian Muslim men, of a certain age, going through racial profiling, being asked to be informants. Where do you think that comes from? What's causing so many young Asian Muslim men to have this experience?
That's a very interesting question, Samayya. I think that in reality, just as Casper outlined, like it's widespread, it's societal, it's in like these practices, these forms of of racism, of oppression, the particular targeting of certain kinds of people that are perceived to be Muslim, is rampant. It's embedded. It's institutional. It's systematic. It exists everywhere. But in particular, a particularly important point in history that has marked these forms of racism, Islamophobia, was following 9/11, and it was since then, particular events and attacks that have shaped counter-extremism policies in the UK, that have allowed the embedding of this particular form of institutionalized racism, where brown and black Muslim men, those that are perceived to be Muslim because of a beard or are related to that community, are associated, women with a hijab, or just anybody that is remotely othered, that doesn't fit the white majority within Western society, but has become a victim in some way or another of these forms of oppression that exist across our society. So I would say that, yeah, following those attacks, there was a particular turn.
Yeah. And I think even now we're at the point where you have like young children being reported and referred to prevent, as though they are vulnerable to radicalization, and it starts incredibly young. Casper, I just wanted to ask you as well, like, tell us about one particular experience that you remember. You've just got back, you said, from Lebanon, I think. What happened when you went through airport security?
Um, so with me, these kind of experiences have actually been going on for a number of years, um, and I think the background to it, a lot of it is down to your age. You see, the people that decide to make these kind of tactical moves on people like us, a lot of the time they probably do look at the age factor to know that there's somebody there that's young, that is proactive, and could potentially either be a threat to them or potentially can come onto their side and be an informant. So over the years, I have been profiled, and I have been taken into stop and search. Recently, give or take about a month ago, I came back from Lebanon. I went there to do strictly charity work with a registered charity that's registered here and in Lebanon, and we had all the relevant documents with us, etc. And there must have been at least 40 to 50 of us that went, in two different groups with two different humanitarian charities. And when we came back, it just so happened that I was the only one that was kind of singled out and pulled in. Now, coming into the airport, if I was to give you the dynamics of it, we'd gone through the border control, passport control. I'd got through that bit. I'd got through the luggage bit. But it was coming out of the luggage area where a number of us noticed that there were border officers that were just stood there. And one of the things that I was told prior to going on this journey, and I've known this from before, is airports are one of those areas on UK mainland that isn't that the UK law doesn't necessarily apply. So, for example, you can't just simply turn around and say no comment. You can't. There's certain things you can't say what you could possibly say outside of the airport, and so there was the border officers that were there, and I didn't realize they were looking for me. Me being the person I was, and I still am, I just kind of just calmly and collectively, just in a very humorous way with the lads, just kind of just walking out, and they literally just filtered through everybody, just kind of looked at me and said, "Can you please come with us?" And the rest of the lads that were there, they kind of they were taken back, but then I think they kind of just looked at me and thought, this guy's kind of used to it anyway, so just he'll deal with it in his own way. Went inside, and again, they start off, and I've had this a number of times. They start off the conversations very nicely, in a way as if they're not trying to provoke you in any way or possible, and as if you don't know why they're really calling you in. So they come with this very innocent kind of approach, but then before you know it, you've been sat there for an hour and a half. They've strip searched you. They've searched your entire luggage, even though there was, I haven't come back with anything, so to speak. There's just my own clothes, etc. But they literally went through everything, and they went through me, asked me a number of questions, such as, why did you go? Who did you go with? How many of you guys went? What was your purpose of your visit? Did you do anything there that shouldn't have been done? Did you take anything with you? If you took charity money with you, how much did you take? And it's all the questions. The way they question it from the get-go, it's like they've got an agenda behind it, and it's just kind of edging towards provoking you to say something that. And you'd probably give an answer out of aggravation. You're kind of getting provoked in a way that they're just waiting for you to tip off the edge, just so that they can pull you in for something that you really didn't do. But because you are made to feel, and I'm going to say dehumanized to a degree, they do make you feel low. They do make you feel as if you are in the wrong when you've not done anything wrong. Why they do it, again, it's like Malia mentioned, it is something that's been about since the 9/11, but I never understand, and I don't think I'd ever come to terms with why they pick on certain individuals when they really don't. Like people like myself, I've never really had a hidden agenda of why I do certain things, but why they pick on us, I will never understand.
I mean, things like you say in the play, the worst feeling is when you don't even know what you've been pulled in for, and that you're used to it, that this is something that's so frequent that you almost expect it to happen, and then also that you talk in the play as well about even the clothes that you wear, wearing a white thobe, for example, like similar to what you're wearing today, can be seen as an instigation in lots of places in Bradford.
So one is in Bradford. I think in Bradford over the years people have come, but if we talk back at a couple of years ago, it was looked down upon and frowned upon that you're not kind of, to put it nicely, you're not integrating, because you are supposed to be focusing more on your nationality rather than your Islamic identity, whereas I see my Islamic identity as a strong point, because my Islamic identity and the faith that or should I say I choose to follow and believe in, really covers a lot of humanity. It's not something that's just, Islam is just this one particular way, and it's no other religion shares the same footings or the foundations that Islam shares. I think Islam shares a lot of good moral foundations with a lot of other faiths, and so me wearing the thobe that I wear, in Bradford now, I think I've kind of grown past it. But bringing back to the previous question of Lebanon, so going to Lebanon, coming back, going on different holidays, I still feel that I can't wear my Islamic clothing throughout the airport. So when I flew out to Lebanon, I didn't wear my Islamic thobe, the thobe that we normally wear. Whilst I was there as well. Well, whilst I was there, I chose not to wear it purely because of the charity work we were involved in, and there was a lot of rough ground, etc. to kind of, and there was a lot of active work going on, so it wouldn't have been suitable to wear Islamic clothing in that sense. But even coming back into the country, I had to make sure that I wasn't wearing things that would even potentially provoke them to kind of question me. But I still got questioned, and I'm just gonna go with the thought that as soon as my name gets checked in, it kind of just it shows in red, so to speak.
Yeah. Those are
Um,
things that you can't change
yeah,
or modify, isn't
yeah,
it? Your name, your skin color, the fact that you've got a beard, for example.
yeah.
Those kinds of things aren't things that
So
you can
yeah,
change.
so you're talking about your name. So I know you've introduced me as Casper. My actual name is Muhammad.
Yeah.
Now to see an Asian guy with a beard who's middle-aged and his name is Muhammad strikes a number of ring bells for them.
Mm.
It shouldn't be the case. But why? I could never
Yeah.
answer that.
And this is also something that I wanted to ask Malia for her thoughts on as well, which is when you speak out about this
Hmm.
and when you try to highlight that there is discrimination, racism at every level of life that you go through as a Muslim, whether that's in education, whether that's in employment, travel, it seems as though it's something that permeates every aspect of your life. Why is it then that when Muslims speak out about it, that this isn't a problem that is solved? It's not a problem that's looked at as though it's as though it exists for so many people.
I think that it's because it's being led from the very top. Like, it's ingrained in our institutions for a reason. It's being rolled out through like the policies of our country, through our government. It's being justified, perpetuated, and normalized. So when you consider the power, the weight of that reality against people expressing their feelings of oppression, telling their stories, it's there's a considerable imbalance. And I think that in reality, the need that there has been like a concerted effort and need, particularly following like Muslim communities, namely from working class like areas and cities like Bradford, mobilizing, opposing, and critiquing British foreign policy, imperialist interventions used and justified through Islamophobia, effectively, organizing against it, marching, demonstrating against the war in Iraq and Afghanistan, around the attacks in Palestine, and the occupation, obviously. But so all of those things, organizing against Islamophobia at home, defending themselves, because historically the state has definitely not served to do so. And I think, and in that defense, the state has used these tropes, these stereotypes, this form of racism to demonize and, as Casper/Muhammad said, dehumanize this community. It makes that defense, turns it into like a monstrous thing, a barbaric thing that is innately like associated to Islam and Muslims, as opposed to the fact that Muslims who are largely in the UK come from low socioeconomic backgrounds, who are facing the brunt of all the negative policies of our governments in every section of society, from welfare services to education to employment, and to the borders, that they are naturally inclined to resist that and to organize against it. And a way in which you divide those working classes is by using tools like racism to ensure that there is a division, that there is a separation, that one side is demonized to the extent, and arguably one of the most oppressed sections of those communities is used to keep the majority population distracted from the issues at hand and the real enemy, which is not Muslims. It is the state and what it is doing to the large majority of people in our country and abroad.
Hmm. And even you talked about kind of the responses, the demonstrations, and how we resist this kind of profiling and racism. And yet it seems even those avenues that we use, even then, those are demonized, and it's not just our existence; it's also the ways in which we resist.
Also, I would point to, the example of Bradford, which is the Bradford 12, that like, the like people from some of the most oppressed communities in the city needed to defend themselves, and that like that defense basically pointed to the many failures of the state. It showed that racism wasn't just a thing of thugs on the street. It was institutionalized. It was embedded within our policing. It's embedded within our, the ways in which the state divides us through housing, through like access to particular services, through the opportunities or lack of that exists, and continues to like target Muslims, to target South Asian communities and other racialized groups. And their need to defend themselves pointed to the fact that the police, this thing that from a young child in Britain you're told is this, this institution is there to protect us, it's to save us, it's to be there, as a hero. It pointed to the fact, it removed that myth, and it threw it back in the face of the state, whilst also showing the capacity of those communities to organize, that despite like the very racist stereotype that like our communities are unable to come together, that they cannot even think about politics, let alone practice them, that they cannot organize and mobilize even from outside their community any defense, any solidarity, which the Bradford 12 did, like incredibly, to the extent that we're still talking about that case and that trial today, and that like that every aspect of that one like moment, that one event in Bradford in history, is still applies today incredibly. And so whenever there is, and so within counter-extremism policies, like we've seen the shift in Britain moving to not just like questions around the right to physical self-defense against like violent fascist racist attacks, against like the oppression of the police, of border control, whatever, to questions around non-violent extremism, in which like our mere thoughts, our words, or like what we're perceived to think is becoming a tool to criminalize us. So the state has like really developed the ways in which it is criminalizing like Muslims' abilities to like politically think of their realities, their oppression. And so if that alone has been criminalized, imagine what is happening to, on the front of resistance, of those saying, let's take to the streets, let's mobilize within our local like community centers, within our mosques, let's get people talking, let's get them moving, let's apply pressure on our government. And so it's an incredibly difficult and hostile like time. But the state knows to target particularly working class communities because, as Casper Mohammed said, many are expected to be to remain silent around it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's where we kind of draw to performances and projects like Peaceophobia. And I guess my final question on the topic is, how do these kinds of projects and performances, in both of your opinions, help to counter, build that space for resistance, and how do they ultimately empower young people to be able to take to take stock of what's happening and do something about it?
I think so. Talking about how the government, everyone reacts and how they're operating, there's you can probably boil it down to this divide and conquer thing. And I strongly believe, this is just my own personal opinion, that a lot of these things, this racial profiling and discrimination, prejudice, injustice that's getting taken place, not just in Bradford but generically up and down the UK, is a lot of it's down to ignorance. And I think the play and doing the theatre whole the whole performance, a lot of it has got. So reading through the scripts, and as you know, we've come a very long way in terms of the whole script and how we're going to go about things. A lot of it is information based and informing people of two things. So one, you'd probably find the audience to be people who share the same or similar type of experiences that we face as three young Muslim Bradford, individuals who are all kind of facing some sort of discrimination in some way or form. So that's one aspect of it, that some people will share it. Other people I'd probably find in the audience who might not share the same experiences, but will begin to see, and for them it'll be information. So they'd begin to see what we're actually feeling through, and what we're actually feeling, and what we're actually going through, and they'd hopefully there'd be a positive out of that. They wouldn't kind of look down on it. That, you know what, maybe these guys in Bradford growing up, maybe they are having a tough time. Maybe we don't see it because we don't come from the same color, skin, background, whatever you want to call it. But now that they've shared their experiences through a play or through an act, and not only have they just shared their experiences, but they've kind of so some of the scripts are inside there are kind of just informing people of what Islam really is. And I think if people were to just understand Islam for its core, rather than looking at what other people's opinions are, there's a lot of truth behind it, and there's a lot of peace in it. And I think that's something that I think unites us all, and it kind of, it takes out the divide and conquer segment of it.
So almost like you can use it as a way to unite.
Yeah, I think
against
I personally believe that this play itself is going to play it's going to be a good tool. And from what I know of, I think this play is not just going to be shown in Bradford, but it's going to be shown in quite a few different cities. And I think for me personally, this is just my own take on it, I'm looking forward to doing it in other cities than I am in Bradford, purely because I'm born and bred in Bradford, and I can kind of guess what kind of reception we're going to receive, but want to know what other people's opinions are going to be regarding this play outside of this box that we're in.
Yeah. What do you think that there's going to be any kind of change that will come after this? What do you hope to see as kind of like almost immediately, like people will see it and think, oh, this is,
Personally, I think this is my own personal opinion, what I would like to see is people not being so ignorant anymore. To kind of use, when I say this is a tool, I strongly believe it's a tool for people to wake up, and even if to kind of just wake up and to kind of look into it, that what is the reality of Islam, what is the reality of social profiling, what is the reality of dehumanization, especially to the younger generation of Muslims that are up and coming in the West, and to hopefully spark a new light, should I say. And I don't know where it'd go from there. I don't know. I really don't know, and I really wish I could elaborate on that, but I don't know where it's going to go. But I really hope there's a powerful beam of light that comes out of this.
Yeah. And Malia, same question to you. What do you think? What is the importance of projects like Peaceophobia, and what can we hope to change?
I think firstly, I think it's incredible. Peaceophobia, when I was reading the concept and seeing the development, is something so powerful and timely. I think that Mohammed, you saying that you're interested in rolling out in other cities and seeing how people respond, what comes out of it often develops through that. It's those conversations, that post kind of watch where people are discussing the aspects of it, are sharing their stories, are relating to it, often leads to people connecting the dots and thinking, actually, this is what we should set up. Actually, this is where we should put some more of our energy and our focus. This is how we should be mobilizing. This is how we can take it that step further. Because what you're doing is you're starting a conversation at a time where arguably both the questions of the arts have gone through a deeply destructive time, and Muslims at the same time, particularly working class Muslims. The arts were cut to the bone by Tory rule. And the pandemic suffocated them even further. You know, the small means of getting money in order to kind of roll out performances or whatever was taken away. And so this is showing and demonstrating that like the arts still live, but also not forgetting that counter-extremism policy, that the prevent strategy was embedding itself within the arts. So like the institutionalized form of like Islamophobia was plaguing the arts and theatre in particular. And I know, because I come from Birmingham, that was like a huge like it was huge deception for like local communities which are like considerably Muslim and racialized. And so this is not only actually countering that destructive way that people were thinking is just inevitable, but also it's reminding people this conversation didn't stop just because we've gone through this pandemic. If anything, all these questions around like the experiences of the poor, of the racialized, of the so-called foreign have been even more heightened now that we've gone through this crisis, because it has been our communities that have disproportionately died. It has been our communities that have disproportionately lost their jobs, that have disproportionately been impacted by like poverty and so on. And within all that, Islamophobia hasn't left, like the government still found a way to introduce more stringent policies that were all about surveillance, that were all about demonizing the Muslim community and pushing this agenda that like this particular community is the threat and we have to give up our civil liberties in the process in order to protect ourselves from it. And so I just want to commend you all, and Commonwealth and Speakers Corner, all of you, for this contribution that I think like the fact that it's been conceived, and I read the script, loved it, is already a huge start. And I can only imagine what is yet to come. And I hope that I and many others that will watch this support you in every endeavor, and understand and feel inspired that there are so many ways in which we can counter all these ills. And as far as like the divide and conquer method goes, like mobilizing mass communities against racism and Islamophobia is also about forcing them to recognize where the problem lies and who the real enemy is to our communities. And it is certainly not each other. And I referenced this funny bit with Dave Chappelle when he said he was queuing up to vote around, I think it was Trump's re-election. Was it Trump's or the first round? Anyway. And he said that there was this queue of like poor white people that were all like rallying for Trump, getting ready to vote, looking at him thinking, we're doing this to get you out of our society. And he just kind of told the audience that I just wanted to tell them, I'm rich, you're very poor. You voting for Trump is helping me. It's not helping you. You think that you're ridding, your society of my blackness, but that is not what is happening in the process. And so reminding people that Islamophobia didn't come out of nothing. It serves political agendas for a reason. It doesn't just exist in and of itself because people decided one day to hate one another. It is, it's embedded within our society. It's perpetuated and it is enforced for a reason. And that reason is what needs to be focused on by all communities, because it is blinding us to our abilities to shape our society for the better. And I really think that Peaceophobia is one of like an incredible space and conversation in which that we can start doing that.
Thank you so much, Malia and Casper, both of you, for such an incredible sharing of your experiences, of your knowledge, wisdom, campaigning expertise, and everything. It's been really great to hear from both of you. And I can only echo what's been said about Peaceophobia. It's a fantastic performance, and I'm really looking forward to it touring the rest of the UK. Thank you.